And he does, like he just does. That's why he has so many pitches, is because he just knows how the baseball moves. When you're feeling down, because he's one of those guys that has a lot of energy and is fun to watch pitch. It never surprises me for him to have a good game. The only thing that's amazing to me is he doesn't throw that hard, but he's still able to get, like, he's a strikeout. Yeah, I mean, he's been up and down. I think his curveball's been really good. He's getting a high whiff rate on his curveball. His two-seamer's got some good movement to him, but he was sick. I don't know if he's had physical issues. He's been inconsistent, but at his best, he's really good. He's so smart. Maybe the smartest pitcher in baseball when it comes to things like pitch grips and little changes and tinkering with stuff and movement. He's as smart as anybody. He's as creative as anybody. And at his best is so much fun to watch because he's a pitching artist. He's one of those guys that uses a baseball almost like a painter uses all the different colors on their easel to paint different things. He uses a baseball to take different grips. And if I move my thumb here, it goes this way. If I move my thumb here, it does this. And knows himself as well as anybody. So he's fun to watch, but I don't think he's put everything together yet this year. He just hasn't had that game where I feel like he's shown everything he has, because at his best, he's so good. I think that was probably it. I mean, that's the biggest thing. And I think it threw some guys off, not being able to have their normal schedule to build up. And obviously the WBC meant so much to the players that played in it, and winning that was huge for the team. Did they sacrifice something during maybe some guy like Edwin Diaz obviously sacrificed the whole season for competing in the WBC. I think it affects different people differently. So some guys, it allows them to think less. So maybe it helps them because there's less time between pitches and they just move quicker. Some guys, it gives them now the ability to call their own pitches rather than shaking off a catcher, taking them out of rhythm. And then other guys, it tires them out more because they don't have the time to rest between pitches. There's a lot of reason why people, and Darvish is one of those guys. He thinks a lot. Like that guy thinks. He's a thinking man's pitcher. He doesn't just rely sometimes on his natural ability, which is amazing, but a lot of times he almost thinks too much. And I talked to him one time because he'd been throwing the baseball up between pitches. And I said, that's a mental game thing, isn't it? And he's like, yeah, because I think it was Joe Madden told him, you're so good and you think too much. And instead of like reacting and playing the game, you're overthinking things. So he would just focus on the baseball, throwing the baseball up and catching it. And that would take him away from thinking too much between pitches. So he's one of those guys that it might have an impact that he hasn't even talked about yet. And in the off season, expect him to adjust even more to it because he holds himself to a really high level and doesn't ever want to have a bad outing and has so many tools that I think he'll adjust to that kind of in the off season is my guess. The thing I've noticed about Darvish is he kind of is taking pride now in taking his pitching stuff and teaching it to younger pitchers. More like he views himself as like the elder statesman of pitching, and he's helping everybody get better, and he loves coaching. So his thing is he loves the art of pitching. He even told me when I interviewed him, I think you saw it, where he said he wants to be a pitch grips coach, not a pitching coach, because he doesn't like this. He doesn't want to talk about the strategy of like putting a runner on or doing stuff. He wants to be a grip coach, because especially breaking pitches, because he thinks he can, off-speed pitches in general, because he knows everything about that. Like he thinks he knows more about that than anybody, and he does. Like he just does. That's why he has so many pitches, is because he just knows how the baseball moves. He's one of my favorite guys to watch because how positive he is when he strikes somebody out. He's, with those K poses, he'll put his hand in the air and do like a kneel down and stuff. I can tell he feeds off energy and emotion. And there are times where you can see him, you can read his face. He gets very down sometimes if he's not doing well. And when he's doing well, there's nobody more fun to watch because he's like this exciting. I want a little bobblehead of Kikuchi on my desk when you're feeling down because he's one of those guys that has a lot of energy and is fun to watch pitch. It's when things are going right. Like he is legitimately electric. Yeah, the fans like him. So I think the fans, when he's on, they love that too about him. But I don't know, like I try to read these guys because I try to put myself in their shoes and he's one of those guys that has big ups and downs. Like when he's up, he is way up. And I think he's naturally, and again, I may be wrong, but he seems like naturally a very nice guy who doesn't want to disappoint anybody. And when he does, it's disappointing to him. It's disappointing to him to see the team not doing well when because if it was a bad outing for him. But when it's good, it's really good. And that's when he's that positive, exciting guy. I also thought his curveball, I think it was his last outing, was really good. Like that was one of the better curveball outings I've seen him. Because usually, to me, he's more of a hard slider guy. And I thought his curveball played really well. I just wonder if he's going to keep that up and at that level, because if he does, it's a really good pitch for him. I think he looks great. Like he's one of those guys that he just jumped right back on the horse and looks really good. His splitter's been really good. I thought he's got command of his pitches. I kind of like where he's at. He doesn't throw particularly hard, but he's a smart pitcher. And that's what jumps out at me is he knows how to tunnel his pitches. He knows how to deceive hitters and read swings. He's just smart, and he sequences his pitches really well. He's one guy I haven't talked to. I know he's a funny guy. Like I've seen him play pranks and do other stuff. I'd love to talk to him at some point. I think he follows me on Twitter. Maybe I'll reach out to him. But I'm sure he's a character to talk to in person. And again, I'm trying to read his. He seems in command of his pitches. Like to me, I like where he's at, and any game he might strike out 10 to 12 guys without throwing hard because he just knows how to pitch. He looks great. Like he's as good as he's been to me. Like I think he's right at where he should be, and it never surprises me for him to have a good game. The only thing that's amazing to me is he doesn't throw that hard, but he's still able to get, like he's a strikeout pitcher without strikeout velo. So he's throwing 91 miles an hour, but I think a lot of it's because he tunnels it well with his splitter especially. But he also has that, so he attacks fastball, slider, and splitter, and he has those go two different directions. So he forms that little triangle with those pitches that makes it tough for a hitter because they can't sit on any one pitch, and he throws all of them in any count. So that's what makes it tough. Love his stuff. Throws obviously really hard. His splitter's nasty. The command is the issue, and it probably was his issue, forever. I think he can figure it out, and he is the best pitcher on the Mets. So that says a lot about Kodai Senga, his character, his stuff, and his desire to win. And that is, I couldn't say enough about him.